So thank you very much for your generous introduction. Let me say I'm very happy to be here and first thank the organizers for inviting me here to give 2 talks today on IKS related topics. I took this opportunity also to come 2 days earlier and to be in the Sannidhi of Amma. So it's always a pleasant thing. And every time I meet her, she says something about how Shastras should be understood, should be brought into the mind frame of work. And in the university, how people should start working on some of this. Well, as Professor Balakrishnan mentioned already, I have been working in my professional life till I formally retired from Indian Institute of Science on university kind of research, the IISc kind of research, which was, my subject was, as he was mentioning about earthquakes, engineering seismology, hazard mapping in India, topics of that kind about natural disasters. That's when I looked into the ancient texts, because the history of earthquakes is important to map the hazard, because the future earthquakes are going to occur in the same places where in the past they had occurred. So if I know where it occurred in the past, I may be in a position to know. This is a common knowledge in earthquake engineering. So that is how we got interested in the natural phenomenon, not only earthquakes, but rainfall, droughts, floods, tsunamis. Tsunamis are also important. And in Sanskrit texts, ancient Sanskrit texts, there are mention of some of these natural disasters. But anyway, to cut this story short, when I looked at the natural phenomenon which are discussed in the Sanskrit text, it was the eclipses which attracted very much, because there are a large number of statements about eclipses. Apart from the inscriptions, the epigraphic inscriptions are there, at least it is said there are about 10 lakh inscriptions in this country, stone, copper plate, all those things. And the number of eclipses which are recorded there, something like 1,000 or so, with the dates and all that. But that all started only after about 300 AD, after the Gupta period also, this inscription writing and all that. But what about the older ones? Eclipses have always occurred. There have been natural phenomena have always been occurring. So that was one of my curiosity. So I'm not an epigraphist. I'm not Indologist in the usual sense of the term, but I am only an ordinary Indian interested in my own culture and my own history, or our own history, so to say. That's all my qualification to talk about IKS. But when I went on searching on this, I wanted to do before the Siddhantic astronomic period. I know that Siddhantic astronomers were very good in eclipse prediction. They knew how to calculate eclipses. But because that is considered the height of an astronomer's achievement, if he could predict the eclipses correctly. There is one record where a person predicted an eclipse correctly in the 10th century or so, and he also got some village and those things. But the mathematical method, which is there in the textbooks, which is very interesting, but the question was, what was there even before that? That was my question, And when I looked at these things slowly, one after another, going back, it goes up to the Vedic period. Because anyway, the Rig Veda is the earliest known text, not only to Indians, but to the whole of humanity. So if you want to say something, if you want to look for some historical issues on anything under the sun, people could take Rig Veda and see whether Rig Veda mentions something about it. So, my first interest was to see whether eclipses are mentioned in the Rig Veda. Yes, everybody agrees that there is a solar eclipse which is mentioned in the Rig Veda. That is in the 5th mandala. It's called the Atri's eclipse. if you know the structure of Rig Veda and all that, you would be appreciating this. And there it says, only Atri and his followers, there is a family of the Atris, they only could see that the darkness is removed out of sun. Nobody else could do. That also as nobody else could do. Essentially what it says is, they knew that this was an eclipse. It was not simply some asura or somebody capturing sun, even though figuratively that may all be true. Svarbhanu Rasurihi, it comes, Svarbhanu was there. But Atri knew how to remove that. That means there's a hint, they knew that how to predict that eclipse, or beforehand they knew that. There is another mantra which comes there. I think that slide was not working in that. Doesn't matter. There is a Pratiprayanam also, it says. Pratiprayanam asurasya vidwan. It comes like that. That means knowing that the asura is coming back, they were worshipping the sun, is the rough meaning of that mantra. That means Pratiprayanam is a return cycle. However you do it, is simple Sanskrit. You can't interpret it in any other way. So that meant that there was something they knew about, it may happen on a Amavasya day, the next one or the next one, something like that. But when we search these things, then I found that there is a very peculiarity in the Rig Veda, but that doesn't directly come, but we have to compare it with a whole number of texts. And if that all that is added up, we know that the 18-year eclipse cycle, which is generally called the Saros cycle and attributed to Chaldeans, the Babylonians, and from Babylonians to the Chaldeans, is actually known. It is there. But how did they use that for prediction and those things? I don't know. But we will see what that is. It starts with Somapāna. So I have to introduce what is Somapāna to go into the eclipse business. Now, Soma is a common word in all Indian languages. Generally, it is taken to be moon. Somanatha, Somashekara, all these words are very standard. Soma is moon. But when I say Somapāna, you don't relate it with moon normally, unless you know already all the intricacies of Vedic terminology. Somapāna, people would take, oh, it is a drink. Pana is there. So in Sanskrit also, if you say Pana, the second word, if it is I think there are Vayakaranas, I shouldn't make a mistake. If it is a Tatpurusha, it is the Uttarapada meaning has to be taken, or the Udarpada becomes stronger or something. So if it is Somasya Panam, it is the Panam is more important, they may say. It may be any drink. But that is how, in fact, the common knowledge is there about Somapāna. And this has been further, kind of emphasized more and more by the Indologists. The Indologists would say, if you see any of the textbooks or any of the books, standard books, Somapāna means the Soma is a herb. It is a lata which was available in Mujawant in Afghanistan or somewhere. And that the priest, the Rigvedic priest, they would distill it, then take it out and drink that Somarasa. And that Somarasa is an intoxicating drink. That is Somapāna. And there are hundreds of places where Somapāna comes. It's not in one place. And the word Soma and Somasya and all those things come about 1,000 times in Rig Veda. So the Westerners had even, more or less decided Somapāna means it is an intoxicating drink. The herb may not be known. Today in the Somayaga, they may use some pratika. They may even use tulsi or whatever, they may use something else. But in the olden days, they would say that they were getting intoxicated by this. And there has been so much of research in searching what is this Somalata, and they say it is actually a fungus, it has some lipid characteristics, and a variety of papers are there, doctorates are there on Soma herb, it's a link to altered states of consciousness and getting into intoxication. is the primary thing which is referred. And taking on this, in India also many people think Somapāna is only that. Soma is going to be some herb, you might have forgotten, but for what purpose they are doing it? To drink. That is the meaning which is there. But in the Vedic, if you see, it might be a refreshing drink, like coffee or tea. But I don't think they got intoxicated with that, because there is a Surapāna separate. In some of the yagas, Sautramani and others, Surapāna is there, mostly for the Kshatriyas. And Surapāna means, okay, it is alcohol, that is because it is fermented and all that. Here it cannot be that. But the issue remains, what is that? Now, I want to show you what is the traditional meaning of this. What our own text says about Soma, what our own texts are telling about Somapāna is my question. And why we have got into this confused approach, there are many. And people who are working in IKS, they would be knowing it's such a vast subject. There are hundreds of books. Everything is supposed to be related to IKS kind of thing. But if you come from the Vedic period onwards, all of us more or less agree. Whatever is knowledge is there, it has come from the most ancient period. It might have come in different ways, and we have imbibed that knowledge. We have imbibed. Even if you say astrology, many people will say it all started with the Vedas and went on starting like that. Now, if you see the reality, I have listed some of them. The practice of Vedic concepts diffused into our day-to-day business so much, we will not be able to even recognize what was the original today. It may be only some kind of doing namaskaram or some kind of other rituals. That is what has happened. But I am not going into that. My study is not field study. How Soma Yaga is done or Somapāna is done today, that is not what I am going to talk about. I will be talking only about the academic work which is possible in a university kind of situation, where we can go through the books, evidences, and understand what is that. There are already about 100 or 200 books, even for the Vedic period. And if you see carefully from a scientific approach, that is from an analytical approach, there are only 3 principles which are important in all this Vedic analysis, whether it is Yajnika, whether it is the Mimamsakas, whatever it is the Prithvi, Antariksha and Dyauh. All of you understand these 3. Prithvi, Antariksha, Dyauh. This comes from mainly a text called Nirukta of the Yaska, who says that 3 devatas are sufficient to explain the whole human experience. Because all physical experience which you are having, you can minimize it to these 3 categories. And that seems to be true, and even scientifically also this is correct. There is nothing else modern science is also doing. It may be going into the details. Here it is not the details, it is a minimization. How many categories are needed? And then Yaska goes on to say something more. We have to understand, as per Yaska, if we have to know what is Somapāna, what is the Adidaivatam in the Vedas? Now, in the Nirukta is a way of interpreting. Interpreting is not the correct word. It is the make meaning out of it, or what is the meaning contained in it to extract it. That would be the right meaning. That would be the right meaning. And he says many of the mantras, these Rigvedic mantras are 3-dimensional. 3-dimensional means what? You can use them for the yajna. Is it for using for the yajna? Not exactly. That you have to see the other text, which other text would say, what the devas did as yajna, Manushyas are doing on the earth the same yajna. So the yajnika artha, what the priests will do later on in the Soma Yaga or whatever Yaga, in some manner it was done by the devas. Who are the devas would be the next question. As per Yaska, it is the Adidaivatam. Devas are the cosmic deities. That is Divi Bhavaha Devaha. So whatever is connected with Deva, it is going to be Devata. Devata is a bhava of Deva. Connected with that is Daivatyam, or regarding that Adidaivatam or Adidaivatyam. Both the words are used. Daivatyam Adikritya Adidaivatyam. That is going to be actually astronomy or astronomical meaning. Initially it is the cosmic deities which are all in the sky or which are visible in the structure of Prithvi, Antariksha, Dyauh. That is a substratum you have to see. There can be some Prithvi Devata which was visible, and it may also have an astronomical meaning or a geographical meaning. That is a separate matter. So here Adidaivatam is going to be that. And then the Adhyatmam is also there, he agrees. That is because Manas comes into picture, Atman and Dod. And that goes into the Upanishadic or the Vedantic thing. He gives sometimes all the three, sometimes only two, sometimes only one. But we know that the Adiyajna and the Adhyatma are preserved in this country pretty well. The Adiyajna approach is there because we have the Yajnikas. Sayanacharya has given the Adiyajna, mostly Adiyajna interpretation in the Vyakhyanas. And the Adhyatma is through the Upanishads and the Vedanta and all of that. That Adhyatma meaning, I will not go into those details. But what about Adidevata? Adidevata, commonly people think it is about worship. Worshipping gods in a temple or worshipping something in our home, that kind of thing. That is not wrong. But here it is more serious than that. How did that arise? And what was the meaning of each of those words? To a large extent, some of the Puranas have preserved this. That is why it is said, Itihasa Puranabhyam Vedam Samupabrahmayet. It is said. That is correct. But Puranas, they have grown so much. You can't accept every Purana as a standard, every Purana as an authority on Vedic meaning. That would be disastrous actually. That can be known once you go through the Puranas. There are some Puranas which are the earliest Puranas, which is the Brahmanda Purana, the Vayu Purana, maybe the Matsya Purana. There are also interpolations. That is another matter altogether in the interlogical studies or IKS studies. How we struck.
Yuga Purana. Yuga Purana.
Yuga Purana is a very late Purana. Yeah, it is there. Yuga Purana is a subset of the Vridagargiya Jyotisha. The traditionalists don't consider this as a main Purana. Purana, as you see, it has to be a big, bulky thing. Whereas Yuga Purana is 135 verses. They will say, no, this is not a Purana. They will say. Whereas Skanda Purana is 84,000 verses. People are happy. Okay, there is a big book, it's a Purana kind of thing. The Purana structure will have 4.5 lakh verses. If you add all the 18 Mahapuranas, take the Upapuranas, it is going to be another 4 lakh verses. So it's going to be a troublesome thing. So because it has grown, it is as we know, our culture is a very dynamic culture, organic. So organically it grows, it adds up and it grows. So some of the Puranas were written in the 19th century, added. Some of things about Victoria, Bhavishya was all added in the 19th century, So we have to be very cautious about it. But anyway, that is another matter. But Puranas are important. So I'm mentioning this, assuming there are people who are working on Puranas, are interested in the Purana as far as IKS studies are concerned. But they have to keep their eyes open and critically look into this, not accept anything which is said in the Purana as right. There is another issue also which comes up, the ancientness. The ancientness of the Vedas, we know that they are maintained, the fidelity is very good because orally they were maintained. They have continued in the same way, even to this day, even in the Pathshalas and all that. And when they were put into the manuscripts in the 10th century or somewhere around that period, later on printed only in the last 200 years, not before that, they are still correct because the manuscripts they have referred. Many of the people who edited this in Anandashram or in Mysore, they have consulted the Shrautis, who are practical people, to compare the Pathas and all that. They are maintained very well. Puranas are not like that. Swamiji, you had something? Okay. So, if you have any questions or any doubts, please put up your hand and ask. Don't. Yes, sir.
Adi Devat, Adi Yajna, is it same as Adi Bhautika?
No, in the Nirukta it is only Adi Yajna. Sorry. In the Nirukta it is only Adi Yajna, not Adi Bhautika. The word Adi Bhautika and Adi Bhautika has come later on, chronologically later on. Adi Bhautika is used in many places in the Vedas, I don't deny. But in the Nirukta, I am telling you.
So you talked about 3 dimensions. So does that include Adi Bhautika?
It could. You mean Adi Daivata would include Adi Bhautika?
No, Adi Yajna would include Adi Bhautika.
Whether Adhyajna will
Adi Yajna would include
No. Adi Yajna would not. No.
So astronomy and all, you mentioned it comes under Adi Devika. Adi Devata.
Adi Daivata.
Astronomy and all will come under Adi
No,
Devata.
it's not mentioned. Please wait for a minute. I will go to that next one. What I meant was, this structuring we have to understand that the Vedic things can have 3-dimensional meanings. In fact, in recent years, it is Aurobindo who has promoted this to a large extent. But he promoted the Adhyatma meaning for the Samhitas also. Reason is, the traditional Vedanta approach looked at the Samhita as only Karmakanda, and Karmakanda was more or less separated out. The Yajna was separated out. They took up only the Vedanta. And it became an elitistic kind of argument. It continues to this day also. So this extreme elitistic Vedantic thing put all these things to the back burner. And in that, Purana was considered still worse than the Adi Yajna. You see, Adi Yajna, at least people did not understand anything. But Purana they could understand. And when they said Indra was doing Somapāna, the villagers were also happy. They had a drama on Indra drinking, and all the Apsaras were dancing and things like that. And films were done and all that. This has to be appreciated. As stories they have come, but the stories have a coded meaning behind it. And that was already known to the Nirukta people. But Yaska being, a very ancient person, 1000 BC or so, he looked at things from in his own way, and he has mentioned that. We will see what he has to say on that. And when it comes to some of these very subtle things are there, all these 3 are interrelated. They are not one against the other. Let us be very clear. They doesn't oppose each other. Sayana, in fact, in many of his bhashya, he gives both the Adi Yajna meaning as well as the Adi Daivata meaning. I will show the next slide about that. He also sometimes gives the Adhyatma. You can see Sayana being a follower of Shankaracharya in the 14th century, he always had a weakness towards the Adhyatma things, but he was a representative of the Adi Yajna tradition, and he himself did not write each and every commentary. Let us be clear. He had a group of 32 people who were writing, and who wrote what, there may have been different biases, because there are contradictory meanings for the same mantra in the Yajur Samhita as well as in the Rigveda Samhita. There are different meanings which are given. So we have to be very cautious in handling this thing, And in fact, it is said that Itihasa Puranabhyam Vedam Samupabrahmeyet. It says, Bibeti Alpashrutad Vedo Mamayam Praharishyati. So if you don't link all of this, Vedas are afraid somebody is going to make an apartha of me or kill me. That is how the Vedas are afraid, it says. So we have to be very careful on this. So keeping that carefulness in mind, these 3 has come down to us. And Somapāna, to understand this is important. To see the contrast between the Western Indological Somapāna discussions and what we traditionally hold it in India, this is important. So, okay, Devata, Daivatam and Adi Daivatam leads to cosmological ideas, to astronomical observations. That is the Adi Daivatam. This is closely linked to explain or experience or understand time. That finally merges with Adhyatma. In Adhyatma, Kala is very important. This merging happens. But that will not happen in 1 hour here. because there are about 300 texts. If all of that you read and see that, all these 6 things, the 6 Vedangas, along with the Samhita, Brahmana, Upanishad, they all merge in these 3 groups. You will see that. I will present only 1 or 2 examples of this. And when it comes to meaning, it is not the lexical meaning. When there is a correspondence between Adi Yajna and Adi Daivata, it is a kind of a similarity. If there are large number of practices which are there in the Adi Daivata description, because Vedas are only textual, it is the meaning you can see of the Rig Veda, the mantra meaning you can say. There, it says Indra was like this, Indra was holding Vajra, and so many things. But in the Adi Yajna, how do you do that? There are correspondences. So if you see how the yajnas are done, sometimes they hold a sword also, In the Darsha and all, they will say, Vaushat, he will do like this with a sword behind, and I don't know whether you have observed these things. So there are peculiarities. So the meaning between these means it is a kind of a similarity or an architectural similarity. If I say that there is a Devata with 4 hands, having 1 Shanka, 1 Chakra, you say, okay, nearly maybe it is like Vishnu or so in some temple I saw. Similarly, that is the kind of meaning you have to get in this. Because the kosha meaning or the lexical meaning, you take it, nothing wrong. But the correspondence, if we have to understand, we have to go to that level. That is what Nirukta itself says. So the first example, Indra drinks Soma. It is in the Rig Veda itself, the 8th mandala. Ekada pratida pibat sakam saramsi trimshatam. Indraha somasya kaunuka. It is in Gayatri Chandas, 8th mandala. I have given the references. Indra is Somasya Kaunuka. He is the lover of Soma. Always fond of Soma. Always fond of Soma. What did he do? Ekada pratida pibat sakam trimshat saramsi. In one go, continuously, he drank 30 lakes of Soma. That is the literal meaning. It is there. And there have been lot of discussion. It is in the 8th mandala, the Kanvas. It is a later mandala. People would say, okay, this later mandala, the concept of Soma has changed. It occurs in all the mandalas, Soma. So, from the 2nd mandala to this, so the 8th mandala should be later than this, all Indological things. Okay, they may all be correct. That is a different thing. And they will say, okay, this Kannu Rishi was in the services of a king who was, because Indra, Mahendra, Rajendra, they are all name of kings could have been. And he praised him as he was drinking 30 cups. He said drunkard, but he didn't want to say that. These are the kind of descriptions which are there. Or something near to that. I might have been very critical, but that is the kind of thing. But what does the tradition say? Tradition clearly says, if you can read that, Nirukta is what I have given. There is a translation of the Nirukta available by Lakshman Sarup. Wonderful book. So if you can't read Sanskrit directly, you can read the translation and understand. And also Sayana Bhashya, of course it is in Sanskrit. Sayana also gives these things. What does it say? Malayalam?
Full translations are there.
Yeah. But it is a literal translation or there is a critical translation? Okay. Actually, I haven't seen the Malayalam thing because I can't read. In the Indian languages, if you see, the best is from the Mysore palace. The whole of the Rig Vedas, along with the ancillaries, that is the Aitareya Brahmana, Aitareya Aranyaka, Nigantu, and Brihad Devata, all that is needed for Rig Veda study. It's in Kannada script. And the important thing is, they have given the Western interpretation also. Sayana Bhasha is also there. Kannada translation is there. More than that, the actual Shrautis who are doing the yagas, they have collected all that information. If this has to be done, when they were doing it, what was the time, what did they do, what is the connection between this and the Yajurveda? Because the Yajurveda is supposed to be for the yagas, All the yaga details are given there. But they all take mantras only from the Rig Veda, That is the difficulty. So unless you combine these two, you will not know what is the meaning. So it is the Rishi, Chandas, agreed, and the Viniyoga is also needed, where it is used. So that Viniyoga comes from the practice. And that practice is also here. That is why I took this example. There are many such examples. One simple example, all of us will be able to know this. He says, he quotes also the later two mantras are there. Yam akshityam akshitayaha pibanti. Then yatha deva amshum apyayanti iti. It's a quotation from the Nirukta. The imperishable one whom the imperishable drink. Devas are also imperishable. Moon is also imperishable. So the Devas drink the moon. They drink the Soma. The relationship between moon and Soma comes up here. But what do they do? Is Soma is the bimba which is there on which ISRO went and put its thing. It is connected with that. No doubt it is connected with, but it is not the whole thing. See, the Indian knowledge system is, it is not kind of a thread. It is a whole river, The tributaries and so many things come and join, separate out, join. Then only you get a meaning out of it, And it is the Amshu. Amshu is the light which is there, And the Devas Amsham Apyayanti, they put it back. And those two mantras are in the Vajrasaneya Samhita, but they are only standalone mantras. And that you have to link it with the Rigvedic thing. Then only you get a meaning. Now, otherwise you don't get. You say the literal meaning, it is only the imperishable one whom the imperishable drink. That's it, the translation. Go further. Keith's translation. You don't understand anything what it means, But Nigantu says, the translation I have given in a single drought, Indra drank 30 lakes full of Soma. Indra is the lover of Soma. This is the English translation. More or less, Griffith gives the same thing, Wilson gives the same thing, everybody gives more or less the same kind of translation. The issue is going to be, in the Krishna Paksha, the moon's phase keeps on decreasing. That is what is meant by the light being drunk by the Devatas. The gods drink moon in the Krishna Paksha. And in the Shukla Paksha, Apyayanti, they put back that in the Shukla Paksha. They increase him in the Shukla Paksha. This is the, you can say clearly, the Adidaivata meaning or the astronomical meaning. That's all. There is nothing more than that. But the Yajnika meaning, how does it come? What is this 30 cups of Soma? It has to be done. In the Madhyandina Samana, the Yajnikas have to keep 30 cups like this, what we are drinking like tea. They have to keep 30 cups of Soma in the Madhyandina Samana and then consume it. Now, there is a discussion there, a Purva Paksha and then a discussion. Indra is Ekadevata, there he gives that. I have given the quotations there. He is Ekadaivatya. He is a single Devata. If it is a Dvidaivatya, like Indra, Agni, Ashvinau, you give in 2 cups. If it is Magha, Nakshatra, you give in 6 cups. Shat Kapal, then you have to offer. Indra is only Ekadevata, why do you give in 30? That is the question. He answers that. Because Indra is drinking, 30 means, in the Krishna Paksha, there are 15 mornings and 15 nights. 15 plus 15 is 30. Continuously he is drinking. You see, if you are a physicist or a mathematician, you will understand, it has to be a continuous thing. It is not simply 1, 2, 3. 30 is 1, 2, 3 you count, but it is Prathida, Pibat Sakam Ekada, Avyavachinnam, he discusses that. It cannot be broken, it is continuous. And this is a cosmic thing. It's a cosmic principle which happens even now. And the meaning of that 30 is that. Now that 30 is important for science, because without measurement there is no science. How did astronomy start in the Rig Veda? This way. There are many numbers. there are at least about 80 or 90 numbers which are there in the Rig Veda. Now, these numbers, were they stupid to give those numbers? If you say there is lakh and 100,000, 10,000, maybe laksha, maybe very imaginary, very large number. Now, 1, 2, 3, okay, you may say, can give something on that. 27, many people would say they are the nakshatras, even though they are not, in the Rig Veda at least. That is a different matter. But this 30 you can understand, there is an explanation. This is what I mean by the intellectual tradition of the Nirukta. So, if you take up this, and Sayana also gives that, Nairukya prasidhyatu kalabhimani indraha. But Sayana gives the full description of that how the yajna has to be done, madhyandina samana has to be done. So roughly you get the feeling, today when we are doing some worship, we also offer naivedya and all that. Maybe if it is 3 cups I may give, 5 cups I may give, if it is in some other puja I may give 108 cups or 1008, and at least the japa I may do or the pushpa I may offer and all that. That has all come from this concept. So you can see moon is important, everybody agrees even to this day. Somehow it has entered in so many ways. That is only natural, but from where it has come. Now there is one more thing. Any questions at this level?
Sir, is it exactly 30 days? It is slightly lesser than 30 actually, right? The cycle.
Now, see, the thing is this. We should not superpose our own knowledge on the earliest thing. You get everything, a development which is happening. Now, your question of 29.5 comes up, not in the Rig Veda. It comes in the other texts. In the Taittiriya Brahmana it comes. So you have to ask what was the calendar. So that is a separate matter. They might have had even in the Rigvedic period. Let us be very careful on this. Rigveda is only something which we have. About 10 mandalas we have. Some 1025 suktas or 432,000 aksharas is what you are having. All knowledge is only that much. They themselves say no. There are 21 shakas of Rigveda, they are not available. There is only one we are having, and a little bit of Bhaskala we are having. So we should not confuse at this level. No, your thing is correct. Trimshat comes in many other places also. You are a mathematician or a physicist? No, because you have to ask the next question. Fractions are there in Rigveda, because you were thinking about 29 and a half, no? It is less than 30. The month is less than 30 days. It is not 30 days exactly. This synodic month is 29.531 days. Now that means in the Rig Veda, is there a fraction concept or only integer concepts? Fraction is there. That is in another place. But all these have to be combined. And why 30? They could have said 60, no? Why did they say only 30? That 30 has come to us as a tradition for that. Now, if you say, no, 60 has come only from the Babylonians, it is sexagesimal, that is again wrong. All these reasons are available, not in the Rig Veda, in this one mantra. That is why he said you have to read all the 100 textbooks, 100 the Vedic books. In the Shatapatha Brahmana, the legend comes, why it is 30. And even 30 is not the original one, it is 15 is the original number. Panchadeshi is the original number, fundamental number. Because the length of the paksha. And the 2 pakshas, they have made it into an integer as 30. And 30 is the common word. 30 Tithi is used even by the Siddhantic astronomers. So you have to handle this perspective you should have on these things. But the origin is this. That's what I'm telling. Not this particular mantra. The whole of Rig Veda is the origin for scientific thinking. Because the numbers, including fractions. And that is the scientific thinking. Not the whole science is there. Not that quantum mechanics is there and nuclear physics is there. No. But for Indians, the number concept of presenting something, the Adidaivata thing, as something which can be understood by everyone, that has started from the Rig Veda. Now let me go to the next one. There is a Surya Vivaha Sukta, also 10.85. See, there is a Surya Vivaha Sukta also in the 10th mandala, where again this Soma comes up. This is a beautiful Sukta where Surya marries Soma, that is Chandra. And it's a highly poetic thing. This is the fundamental for Indian marriages. Can't go into that because it's a very long Sukta. Beautiful. Many people have written on that. They have written books, textbooks, PhD thesis, so many things on the Surya Vivaha Sukta. But the important thing is there, it says, Somam manyate papiman desh. I'm not able to read it from here. You may be able to read it. Samanam masa akritihi, samvatsaranam masa akritihi somaha, rupa visheshena voshadihi chandramava. There are two kinds of Soma, he says. Either in the Yajnika Artha, it is going to be a Voshadi, that is a herb. But otherwise, it is Chandrama. In this Sukta, it has to be seen as a Chandrama. That is, Chandrama is going to be the moon. Reason is, the same word is used, Soma is used, Chandra is also used. The word Soma is used even for Surya sometimes. Soma is used sometimes even in the sense of Indra. Indra is drinking Soma, we have seen that. How can Indra drink Soma? Finally, they say it is abstract. Indra is Kala. So there are so many Kalabhimani Devatas. Indra is also one of them. But here what happens in this Sukta, if you have to understand, you have to take, here in that marriage Sukta, you don't take it as Soma as the herb. It has no place in the marriage ritual. Only the yajna it may have. So he gives that description. Just an example I am telling, clearly mentioning. You have to take it in a different meaning. Now I go to the next one. There are several numbers which I already mentioned. There is one particular number that is 3339, which has attracted me for a very long time, nearly about 20 years. And why this number is there? See, the other numbers I can give some explanation. 360 maybe it comes in the Asyavami and all that. You can give some meaning, the 360 days in a year or something like that. But this peculiar number, it is not an imaginary something like a laksha or 1,000 or a koti or something like that. It is not like that. It is not 30 like the simple number which we saw. It has to be something very, very peculiar. And that is, the next few slides I will show what is that. It's also connected with Somapāna. And that is connected with the eclipses. Because you would have seen already, you might have guessed, if moon is there and he can be drunk by the Somas, the Devas, then there is going to be Amavasya and Purnima anyway coming into picture. And Amavasya, the Devas come on the Purnima day and all that, which is there, even in the later Puranas, if you have read them. Then you can guess, then there's something could be there in this number 30 and other things. Indeed, it is there, but in a very, very complex way. That complex riddle has to be separated out. That is where IKS research becomes important. Now, let me go through this. This number 3339, where does it come? We will see. It is in the 10th mandala. It is in a sukta called the Sauchika Sukta, 10.52. It is a Sauchika Agni, it says. There are so many complexities with the Vedic studies, I can't go into that. Because who is the Rishi here? Sauchika is the Rishi and Agni is the Devata. Who is Sauchika Rishi? It doesn't say. Because there is a understanding, if the Rishi is not known, one of the names which is inside, that will be taken as the Rishi. That itself can be the Devata also. But Sauchika comes up here, so Sauchika is the Rishi. What is the meaning of Sauchika? Suchika word, Vriddhi becomes Sauchika. Was he a living Rishi? No, this is a peculiar issue. Maybe in the afternoon talk, something on that may happen. In Indian context, because people could go to the Swarga and they will live with the nakshatras. The name of the nakshatras also, at least some of them, were the names of the rishis who were here. The Saptarshis, for example. They are the names of the rishis. Atri, Bhrigu, Kutsa, Vasishta, Gautama, Kashyapa, Angirasa. They are the rishis, not what Varahamihira gives as Pulastya Marichi. One of them may be there. The others, we all use that. Even in the Sandhya it is done. That is the correct Saptarshis. They are also connected with the 7 mandalas of the Rigveda. The 7 mandalas are the family mandalas of the Rigveda. They are the 7 rishis. And the other 3 mandalas, first and last, are combined. 9th is only Pavamana, that is the Soma mandala. We leave it outside. So these are the 7 mandalas. So the Saptarshi and the Agastya as the 8th are the Gotra Pravartakas, and that is how we are all carrying on this further. It is not all the Indians, they have some Gotra, are of their descendants, of these 8 people only, Saptarshis and Agastya. That is the unity which they have introduced as a root from day one in this country, But anyway, coming back to this. This Sauchika means indicator. Suchi is indicates something. He is an indicator rishi. And the meanings are also similar to that. And where the number comes, I have underlined, Trini Shata Tri Sahasrani Agnim Trimshacha Deva Namacha Saparyanta. Then it goes on like that. There are numbers which you have to add up, because this is the way in the more ancient times large numbers were said. If you add all of them, you get 3,339. You can break that Trini Shata, 300, and the Tri Sahasrani, 3,000, then Trimshat, 30, add Navacha, extra 9. That is how the thing is given there. Now, is this a decimal system or some other system? That question doesn't come here. Is it a place value system? That doesn't come up here. So let us not get into such discussions. We have 0 known here. Let us not get into that. That doesn't come in. But it's a large number, reasonably, very specific. How did they count? You say that Yogi Janya Pratyaksha, then that is a different matter. But exactly how did they count it? It becomes difficult. Actually, in the tradition, all that is available. That's what I will.
This word Shatani and Sahasrani is there.
Sorry?
Shatani and Sahasrani is there. So it is a decimal system.
Decimals, it becomes on your definition of the decimal system. Because people mistake, decimal system means either this point, 2.5, 3.5, that's it. Common people think that as the decimal. Counting in 10, if you think as the decimal, it is there. And there is also a trouble. People say sexagesimal system is different in 60 counting, and the Indian astronomers borrowed it from the Babylonians, is the argument, from the Greeks and others, the degree system and all that. What is 30? 30 into 2 is 60. And it is 60 is also there in Indian counting itself. If 30 muhurtas make a day and 12 months make one cycle, 360 number is there, sexagesimal could as well have been here. They knew that. So to say the sexagesimal is different is wrong actually. But there might have been other counting systems, I agree. But decimal, if what you say is that, I agree. But many people think as the place value system. The 100, 200, but this may be the origin of that. You are right. These are the concepts which come up like that. When people wanted to write, you will see later on in the Puranas what they do. There is a growth. There is a development of these things. Now, let me go to the next slide. All this is said to be of the Vishvedevas. These are so many Vishvedeva. What it says, you have to read. If somebody is interested, read Sayana Bhashya, understand who is the Advaryu here, who is the Yajnika. Moon is the Advaryu, Moon himself is the Samit. It is a self-sacrifice kind of thing, which was done on behalf of the Ishvedevas. When the story is that Agni was hiding in water, And these people, rishis, brought him out after some time. And that was the life of Agni. And what was that life of Agni was known only to some of the rishis. And that life is connected with this number. That life is connected with this number. I have given just the gist here. It is about the moon, you can see, because there is a aharahar jayate masi masi, it comes. So daily he comes, and also in masa he comes. That is about the moon. Everybody agrees that this is about the moon. And then the conclusion is Agni being honored by 3,039 gods. They are the Vishvedevas. And the next mantra is also belongs to the same group, Sauchika group. Agni has arrived with the lifetime given to him by the gods and has made our offerings to the gods auspicious. We have understood the secret of the sacrifice. This is the yajna. This is the first yajna. Even traditionally, I will come to that. The Dashapurnamasa is the first yaga. Even today, that is considered the first one. Even the Yajus Samhita and all that, it starts with Dashapurnamasa. Ishetva, Jetva, it starts, it is about the Dashapurna. But how does it come up? The tradition is preserved in the Brihad Devata and others. The legend is further preserved in the Brihad Devata, which is again a very important text. And Brahmanda Purana knows this number. Brahmanda Purana is a later Purana, obviously, and it also says that if you can, this is a very simple Sanskrit, anybody can read the Purana and understand. Bhakshartam amritam somaha paurnamasyam upasate. On Paurnami it comes, ekam ratrim sureha sarvehi pitribhi etc. Somasya Krishna pakshado bhaskarabhimukasyatu prakshiyante pitrdevaihi piyamanaha kalakramat. Here it is the Pitrudevas who are drinking the kalas. Maybe they were also Vishwadeva. And you would remember, if some of you would know, in the Shraddhas, it is the Vishwadeva who are invited, The Pitru is there, then the Vishwadeva is invited. Vishnu, Vishwadeva and Pitru, they are the people who are invited. That structure is there and that link is there. And who is that? There is a Trayascha Tri Shataschaiva, Trayastrimshat Shataivacha, Trayascha Tri Sahasrascha, Devaha Somam Pibanti Vai. And that number is a palindrome. 33, 303, 3003. I have written down. You read that number, either way you get the same number, palindrome. So many people, Devas drink moon. In the Krishna Paksha, it clearly says here. That secrecy which was there in the Rigveda is not there. Here it is clearly there. He also says, Evam dinakramat pite vibhudaistu nishakare. Nishakara is moon. Daily like this drunk, then pitva ardhamasam gachanti amamasyam surottamaha. 15 days go like in the Krishna Paksha like this. Your 30 comes as 15 here. And this is that number. Very clearly, it is connected with that. Now, is this astronomy or not, we will see. And this number is there almost everywhere in the Kapisthala Katha Samhita and the Katha Samhita. That number is given in prose, not as in the Rigvedic poetry, but in a different way. I will not go into the details, you can read that. And he says this is the yajna, which is once again done. It's anu, it keeps on happening, is what it says. Now we will go to the next interpretation. It is in the Krishna Paksha 3,339 Dinakrama happened. What happened in the Shukla Paksha? Time is moving. So the total time should be 6,678. Cannot be anything else. So that was the secrecy of the lifetime of the Sauchika Agni which was given. That lifetime corresponds to what? If you take 30 as the synodic Tithi period, you get 222.6 lunations. Or synodic months will be 223 synodic months in round figure. 223 synodic months is the sorrow cycle. When the anomaly is also similar, the position where the eclipse occurs is also similar. We will see a little bit more of that in the next one. Now, this 6,668 was the number. They didn't give 223. 223 is a Babylonian number. 223 is considered the fundamental Babylonian astronomy, fundamental for Babylonian astronomy. That is 223 synodic months equals 241 sidereal months is considered the fundamental. If you see the history of ancient astronomy by Nai Gabor, is a monumental work. It should be available maybe in your library for history of astronomy. He gives all those details. But he did not know anything about Indian astronomy. He did not know anything about Tithi. He knew only something about what is called Tamil astronomy, which he borrowed from some French people who went to Pondicherry, got something, that's all, only Sanskrit astronomy, which was in Tamil, words were used. They thought it is Tamil astronomy. It's a separate matter. But anyway, you can see that if you take 371 Tithis per year, which is actually the number used later on, it is going to be 18 years. And that 18 years is the eclipse period. 223 lunations or 18 years is the eclipse period. And this number is so important. So the model of Somapāna is an uncanny scientific naturalism. This is a model. This is a Rigvedic model. Our ancients also developed cosmological models, astronomical models, models for the universe, models for self, so many things. And they are all intellectually written up in texts and also traditionally transferred to people. Now, you go further, how did they count this is the question. They should have kept some count. Can they keep count only as like this? 10 I can do, maybe I can go up to 20, I can go up to 30. I have to make some mark somewhere. Even the most illiterate people, they make marks. For example, the people who would sell milk and curds in the villages, they don't know, but they would make a mark with chalk or something, 1, 2, like that. And in the end, they will cross it and say, this much money you have to give on. So it is the intelligence. So the numbers are independent of language. I may use a language to express my number, but the concept of the number itself is universal. And that is what is science. That is why it is all important. Then let me go to the counting business. They can easily do it by putting a pebble on the ground. That seems to be the simplest thing. Did they do that? Actually, in the fifth mandala of that Atri, he says, Gravana, he says, by combining the stones, the Atris removed the solar eclipse. What? Combining the Gravana, this gravel, how did they do it? Is a doubt which anybody comes. But anyway, let us not go into that. The simplest yaga, if you come to the Adi Yajnika thing, is the Darshapurnamasa yaga, which is done even to this day. In all places it is done. Many of the people do. And this Darshapurnamasa is supposed to have been prescribed by the Rigveda. Whereas in the Rigveda you see only Sauchik Sukta, nothing else. But it could be true because the Dhyana mantras are all from the Rigveda. Whereas the actual doing, this is what I mean. You have a perception, a concept, then actually a description, you can say a theory or whatever, then there is a practice, actual experimentation or actual doing of that. That actual doing you get only from the Shrauta Sutras, that is from the Purohits. It's not a single Purohit who come to our house and does that. For that you need the 5 Purohits or the 16 Purohits, and they will all do that. The simplest is the Darshapurna, where 4 Advaryus are sufficient. Ritviks, they are not called Purohits, they are the Ritviks. And the Yajamana Patni. You may observe some of this. This is done even to this day. So if you are interested, you can carefully observe it. Now, this says, Darsha is the new moon. Darsha has to be seen. Darsha literally means seen. It is not no moon. It is not Amavasya. It is actually the Pratipat. Only after the moon is seen. Whereas Paurnima is the full moon. So that is how the Darshapurna, that name has come. It is not Amavasya Purnima Ishti. It is Darsheshti or Darshapurna Purnamasya Ishti. Now, there is a lot of details which are available. I put you one photograph. And the central Vedi, which is there, there is the square. On the other side is a circle. And there is a semicircle. All of you can see that. And there is in between, there is one, I will show you detail of this, which looks trapezoidal. It's not actually a trapezoid, which is something like an hourglass, becomes something like this. And the Vishwadevas have to sit there. How many? The 3,339 Vishwadevas. And this is a curious thing. So this Vishwadevas are supposed to be invited in that yaga to sit here. And they are called the Barhishada. They sit on the darbas. So that's all what is done. There is no fire on that. There is no swaha with the fire on that. But it is very, very important. And if you see the philosophy of this, some of the Brahmanas are very interesting. Brahmanas means Brahmana text, not the caste of Brahmana. I am not referring to that. The Aitareya Brahmana, the Shadvimsha Brahmana, and those texts. They explain these in terms of some stories and all that. And they are very, very important to understand what is meant by this. And in this, the area of that rectangle, the square, area of the circle, area of the semicircle has to be same. It is the circle has to be squared and the square has to be circled and both has to be made equal to the semicircle. That is equal to 1 Vyama, it is called. The area is given. It is in the Shulba Sutras. So you have to go to the geometry and all that. The origin of all that from Indra drinking Soma have come to mathematics and geometry. It's also algebra in this. People say it's a geometric algebra, algebraic geometry. And this is all now stuff of concepts which historians of mathematics in Western universities are struggling with. How these concepts came up, how this happened and all that. Now let me go further. How did they do these areas is another matter. That will take one full course on Shulba Sutra. I will not do that. But my curiosity was, what is the area of that Darshiki Vedi? If the Vishwadevas are coming and sitting there, is there any correlation between them, that area, and the Rigveda number? I mean, as an engineer, as a scientist, we look to correlations. If the rainfall, I want to predict, I see for correlation with something, then you say, okay, rainfall may be happening and all. Same thing, if there is a correlation, I wanted to check. And it turns out, well, anyway, I have shown something more also, how in a standard exhibition which is kept in the Vedic exhibition. So that is either a perfect symmetric trapezoid, or slightly reduced. That is the Shaka Veda, they would say. People were using a different kind of thing. Now, where do I get the construction of this? Today, they will simply put the bricks in some way and be done with it. But the description is given in the Bodhayana Shulpa Sutra. Now, people keep on, even the politicians keep on now fighting about Bodhayana and telling it's a Bodhayana, you have to sell not the Pythagoras theorem, Bodhayana theorem. What have they understood about Bodhayana? Bodhayana is more serious than Pythagoras and all that, Bodhayana discusses how the Darshiki Vedi has to be constructed. I will not go into the translation. He gives the length, the measurements, and how it should be, arc should be cut and all that. And that description I have given, the construction I have given. So geometric construction, he says 64 angulas on the west side, 48 angulas on the other side. Construct first a trapezium. That dotted line, A, B, C, D is a trapezium. And then he says, on each side, you take a rajju, a long rope, which is going to be twice the length of that length CD, twice the length. And then keep on extending with the help of some sticks which are put in the ground, stable sticks. When you extend it up to the center and when it's equal, you know that it is going to be an equilateral triangle. And then you construct an arc with that as the radius, with that center as F, construct an arc. That is the full arc CD. Remove that material out, gouge out that material. Similarly, do on the other three sides also. And what you get inside is the Darshiki Vedi, that is the construction. You see, excellent geometry. Now, the theory of the Brahmanas, what they were telling, the Ahavaniya, which is the square, is the heaven, Dyauh. The Garhapatya, which is circle, which is at the other end, is the Prithvi. In between is the Antariksha, is this Vedi, Darshiki Vedi. What it could be? So the Vishwe Devas are Antariksha Devatas, and they are the ones who are coming to drink moon and all that. So this is something to be correlated with that number. I calculated the area. I mean, this is simple geometry, Anybody could calculate. The area was calculated, and actually the exact value comes to 3115. It doesn't come to that number, but we have to be careful. Is the Shulba Sutra time. Shulba Sutra, they did not know pi equal to what I had. They did not know root 3 was the irrational number that I had. But they knew the value of pi as 3.08, root 3 as 26 by 15. It is there. A series is given with the two terms for root 2, for root 3 and root 5. They are all called Savisheshaha. So they are numbers for which something is still left. They are irrational numbers. So if you do with this accuracy, you get 3345 or 3334. The average being 3339. So anybody would say this is correlated with that. The area is, so their idea was this. But will this help in any manner? There is the next question. Yeah, if they had observed moon.
Positions of the moon.
Moon.
Then there will be moon
Correct.
positions of
Correct.
all the
Positions of, you are exactly right. So if they have observed moon, I have shown one diagram there. That is the full moon position. 223, 18 years. It's a simple demonstration. First, let us look at only the full moons. And they did all that because in the Shulba Sutra it says the Prishtya Rekha has to be drawn and this has to be done and you have to look at the moon and then the Darsha has to be done and all that. Obviously they looked at the moon. Without that they wouldn't have done this, And then if they looked at only the moon, only the Purnima moon, they would have got this shape, what I have showed on the left side. And they were obviously more intelligent than us, not simply 223 full moons, but what happened in between, that was their question. Only in the Krishna Paksha is what they measured, So the reason is in the Krishna Paksha, the moonrise can be seen even today. Shukla Paksha you can't see. In Krishna Paksha, because after the Purnima, each day one muhurta late moon rises. So each day if you are awake in the night, as they were awake, you would be seeing the moonrise. And that would happen either to the left or to the right. They did not know about declination and all that. It was kind of an azimuth they knew, to the right and the left of the Prishtya Rekha, which is the central line, which they knew from the Shanku. That is with the shadow of the, that is all discussed in the Bodhayana Shulba Sutra, how to draw the east-west line and all that. So roughly they knew this. And if they had extended this, see the next one, I had on the right side a full diagram of the 3339 of the computer generated of that, which was also like this. So it was the moon's orbit which they captured in the Darshiki Vedi. That is the conclusion what I want to do. And it doesn't stop there. They used it for eclipses because if today in one particular nakshatra, Purva Shada, Purva Bhadra actually, if a lunar eclipse occurred, 18 years later in the same nakshatra, the full moon eclipse would be occurring on the Purnima. And this Vedi, they could have used for understanding so much of astronomy. the left diagram which I have shown, the Purnimas, which their full circles are marked, And they would also know if the Amavasya, how it changes and all that, because it would look like a serpent, because there will be blanks, there will be dots, there will be blanks, and there will be dots. So it will be something like this is going. And even if the east-west line is marked, when the eclipses occur, the Purnima eclipse occurs, it won't occur only on that line, it would occur on some other line. There is the ecliptic, they would know, because the sun thing would also coming up there, So the growth of science has happened through this, would have happened this, and even today this can be done. In fact, I tell many of the Sanskrit university people, instead of doing so much of mantra and all that, do this. Put up this. In Michigan University they have done. They have put up a moon's calendar purely based on moon's position to show this is standstill. Now these are what is called the lunar standstill, where the maximum declination happens once in 18 years, minimum declination happens once in 18 years, where in the pinched place. So otherwise this keeps on continuing like this. They do that, and the lunar calendar was developed, and even in some people, some what I would say amateur people in Sweden and others, they use this kind of calendars. And it can be constructed in somewhere, and you can observe all of the things. Well, anyway.
You have the 223 moon positions in the and some of the circles are darker, so those are the eclipse positions. Is that what you're saying?
Which one?
No, in the previous slide, that figure you showed, no?
No,
I'll ask later. It's okay. You proceed.
No. The figure what I showed was only full moon observation. They were not all eclipses.
Yeah, they just
Some of them could have
some of them will that's what I'm asking. Some of
correct,
those,
correct.
exactly.
Correct.
You have marked it in more darker than the
True,
others.
true.
Yes.
You are right. Some of them could have been eclipses. Then they would have got the knowledge that once in 18 years, in the same nakshatra it would occur. Indeed, actually, 18 years is the Rahu Dasha.
Yeah.
I mean, all of you would be knowing about it. Ketu Dasha is not 18, unfortunately. If Ketu is opposite Rahu, then it has to be 18 only. It's unscientific. Horoscope astrology is unscientific because of this. Ketu has to be opposite Rahu. It has to be 18 years, not 7 years. Because that Ketu, what they are wrongly interpreting, was actually a comet in the original time, in the 4th century, which could have been 7 years, because a 7-year cycle a comet can come.
But that is in Jyotisha, that need
No,
not be
it's a separate matter. I will not go into that. But this 18 years is there. And it has come up to this day.
Ketu Dasha also last 18 years, we will all die. Rahu itself is.
Now, Mahabharata also has the 18 parvas, and so that, and 18 numbers is important. And Gandhari tells Krishna, 36 years from now, the same Utpata will occur, and Vrishnis will fight each other, they will die themselves. Why that 36? 18 into 2. So they knew that number, Otherwise, this will not get into that. But this was kept a secret. That is true, because the rishis later on, in fact, in Brihadevata says, the secret time of the Vishwadeva Agni was known only to 40 rishis. Not everybody knew about it. But anyway, that is a separate thing. I think the time is up. I wanted to say something about solar eclipse, but the slide is not showing. But I may skip it. But I will go back and indicate one thing. People have asked me, is this something which Siddhantic astronomers could have got? I feel they would have got it. Because this number, out of it in the Siddhantic astronomy, they don't use Rahu. They don't say Ketu, Pata they use. That the year cycling is 18.5 years. Or 18.6 it comes. But they don't give this number. They give in the Kalpa how many times it happens. If you calculate it, comes to this only. So, and Burgess, who translated Surya Siddhanta, he says, we don't know how this 18 year they got for the 18.5 they got for the node. Somewhere some cultures they might have got, some ancient cultures might have known that. It is there. It is the Vedic culture which would have given them, Now, there are other things there. If you take 223 and 241, because it is in the same nakshatra it happens, then you know I have given the continued fraction breakup, 62 by 5 and 67 by 62. They are the fundamentals for Lagada's calendar, Vedanga Jyotisha. 67 sidereal cycles equal to 62 synodic months or synodic cycles is the fundamental for the calendar. And 5 years are going to be there. That is the calendar, what is called Vedanga Jyotisha. Vedanga Jyotisha should not be limited to only the Lagada. In fact, the Mahasalinam is the real Vedanga Jyotisha, which I will mention in the afternoon. And one question many people ask, and let me see if I can show that. All this is okay, but did they use it for eclipses is the question. Maybe there is a relationship which you have shown, but have they mentioned anywhere? Did they know that it is due to what reason the eclipse is occurring? It is about lunar only. It is the lunar eclipse which they found out first. Solar might have been later. There is an argument on these things. Because lunar eclipse is going to have a very long period, whereas solar will be only for a few minutes. And some of the partial cannot even be known, cannot be even recognized. That is why even in the Mahabharata, when solar eclipse is mentioned, they use the word Sahasa and Aparvani and all that. Suddenly it happened and like that, because it's very difficult to say if there is a small thing, whereas it's moon you can do that. A color change also happens with moon. Now, there are some mantras there about the Vedi. Now, this indicates that this Vedi, even today the Vedi is there, as I said. Vedi is very important. There are so many mantras related only to the Vedi, the Advaryus and others have to say. And the Vedi, the mantra says, once it disappeared, the Vedi disappeared. And later on, the Devas found out, the Agni found out and all that by digging in the ground. And it has to be dug only for 3 inches, 3 angulas. If you dig it more than that, that Vedi belongs to the ancestors, to the Pitrus. So it has to be only that is what is said. And there are so much details are given about the construction of this Vedi. All of that, whether it is true or false, is a different matter, but it gives a feeling there is an archaeological sense here. This was already practiced by some older cultures or traditions, Vedic only. These people had forgotten that, and then the Vedi they found out. It was connected with all of this. And what was the mantra with that? That I have quoted. If there are Yajurvedis, they would be telling this mantra also. Pura krurasya visrupa virapshihi, etc. The meaning is, it says about that Vedi, your self-law, Swadha, you are the self-law. You are the glorious one. And you take the earth, by means of it, self-law, and place it on the moon. That's the meaning of this. Is the Vedi, which with this Swadha, now today Swadha, Swaha, and these are from the Amara, we use it in a different meaning and all. Swadha, you can see that Vyakarnas are there by self thing, in their own way. Avaragavara would say in Kannada, Avalakavala in Tamil, They do that. What do? It keeps the earth on the moon. If the earth is kept on the moon by the help of the Vedi, tell me what it can be, what is the imagery there? It is the shadow. And he says that mantra is there, Pura, Ararur Nama Rakshasaha Vishena Alimpayat, it comes. That shadow was itself a Rakshasa or an Asura. So because of that, he covered it with, and that is why you have to do some snanam, so many things and all that to remove that. That is okay. That is a separate matter which has come from the Dharma Shastras and other Paddhatis. But here it is there. And you read Sayana's Bhashya, very beautiful. Purve Yajamanaha, he says, not in his time, but in an older time, Vedi Rupam Yam Prithivim कृष्ण भूमेः आसूर्याः सकाशात् ऊर्ध्वमादाय चंद्रमसि अमृतकिरणैः सार्धं स्थापितवन्तः. They were doing that in the Purva Kala. They were taking with the help of the Vedi, keeping the earth on the Chandrakirana with the moon. But what are the present day people are doing? Idantintanastu. 14th century people and later on, Dhimantaha, you can understand, very intelligent people, Tamimam Vedim, this Vedi, Manasa Anuchintya Tasyam Yajante. They Manasa Anuchintya Tasyam Yajante. They are not able to keep this earth on the moon. That means they had forgotten the importance of that, but they continued that. Manasa Anuchintya, this is very important. Even today they have to say all of these mantras, and the Yajamana and the Yajamana Patni would stand in front of the Vedi, they look to the north, and then ask that they should, their Kalavasana should go to near the Saptarshi Mandala. The Brahma there, he does in Upamsho, is an Ashirvada, that you take the Agni, please take these people to the Saptarshi Mandala and keep them near the Saptarshis in the Swarga and all that. So they may get that pala. That is the Purva Mimamsika say it is the Adrishta pala, whether you know it or not, you get the pala. Maybe they are getting the pala, but this is the pala IKS people would get it. Or scientists would get it. Well, the remaining I'll just go through, I will not read it. The Rigvedic eclipse, this solar eclipse, they tried to date it. The dates have been given 2 dates. It's in the 4th millennium. The earliest was by Stockwell, already in 1895. He dated it based on something, the Atri Mandala. So, and Sengupta in Calcutta, he dated it to slightly different date, but it is on the interpretation of whether it is Vishuvanta or equinox. So, Vishuvan in the most ancient period was not equinox, it was the solstice. So, the interpretation of Sengupta is better according to me, more realistic. Sengupta was not only a great Sanskrit scholar, he was also a modern astronomer in Calcutta. At that time in the independence period, the knowledge was maintained by both the scientists and the traditionalists in the same way. Yeah, I think that's all what I wanted to say. There are a few things about the calendar and all that we may skip. This is the summary, that's all. So, Soma with its derivatives occur 1,000 times. Not in all places Soma would be meaning the herb. That's one thing. The second is, in some places the word may be referring to Adhyatma. That is the Manas and all that. As the primordial Manas and Kala. In several other places, Soma would be referring to moon. Somapāna by the gods or Indra refers to decrease of moon's phase in Krishna Paksha. This is my fundamental conclusion. Thank you for your patience in listening to me. If there are questions, I would be happy. The subject being, if it is something a little bit difficult or kind of complex, going like this, like that.